Hey, here's the quick heads up for this PDU, Personal Development Unplugged podcast. And it's all about our natural skill, the things that we do that when we think about things and we get anxious and we get worried and then we might get fear and panic, how we can change that, how we can change it, and a process of being able to change it for success and feel good. Now that's got to be something good, and all you're doing is using your natural skill, just imagination and a little bit of a process. So hopefully you really enjoy this. And if you're new to the podcast, I just hope you can really enjoy it. My name's Paul Clough. I'm a hypnotherapist, an NLP trainer, a trainer of hypnosis and master hypnotist, and do lots of wonderful things with the mind to create better lives in people, to guide them into accessing all the stuff they really want to, well, just to live a wonderful life. So if that's something that you're really interested in or would like to just listen to, you're in the right place. And there's loads of stuff here. So if you want to go back through the back catalogues, there you'll find a wealth of information. So, but if it's your first time, enjoy. If it's not, welcome back. Personal development, unplugged. Oh, what a skill. La da 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 da. A little bit of singing in the words, or very similar to Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. Oh, what a skill. Not quite the same thing, is it? But we have a tremendous skill. You've got a tremendous skill. I've got a tremendous skill. And we use it without even knowing. But what I want to talk about is, it was a statement I heard. Someone just threw it out, and it stuck with me, as these things do. And I got to thinking, so what was that statement you heard, Paul? Well, funny you should ask. Here's a statement. If you think you couldn't make it worse, think again. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, we actually do, don't we? We do try to make it worse for all the wonderful right reasons, all the wonderful right intentions, but we still make it worse because we don't use the skill as I think it should or was intended for. You see, that skill we have is just using our imagination. Imagineering, in the words of Walt Disney. I don't think he ever said them, but, well, I think he might have done. He would have done if he knew them. And it's using our imagination around things, events, problems, issues, worries, concerns, anxiety, that allows us to really think and consider. Yet we seem to use it unconsciously, and that's the difference. I believe we can use it consciously and unconsciously. Or when we start to use it consciously enough, it becomes a better process for us unconsciously. So how do we do it unconsciously? Well, I think this is what I've termed as practicing failure. You see, when you practice, if you've got an issue, we never, I can never say never, Paul, because that's too general, but very rarely do we think of all the things that could go right. And if this goes right, that would go right, and this could go right, and then that. And that's so wonderfully optimistic and so uplifting and so feel good that we don't use it. What we do is we practice to failure. So we have this issue that hasn't happened. We start to think of, well, what happens if this goes wrong? And if I say this and that goes wrong, how will I feel? And we start to get a bit of anxiety. And then through that anxiety, we start to make up even more pictures. And it's amazing how 20/20 vision, this imagination just clicks in. The sounds get so real. We can be there. We can see it all. And you see, from there, we start to imagine it going really, really, really wrong. And we start to get fear coming into it. And then we start to think of all the things in the past that, well, what was I fearful about? And dump that fear, because we don't want that to happen. So if that was to happen, what would happen? And then we start to panic and get into overwhelm. And that then affects certainly we've got our emotions, we've got our internal representations going absolutely skew-iffy. And physically, we can actually get really low on energy. We can feel sick about things that haven't actually happened. And they're not maybe likely to happen. But because we've used this wonderful thing of imagination and our imagination, we have created a physical illness in ourselves. In fact, some people actually do. They create a physical illness. Now, wow. Do you remember I talked a little while ago about the NLP communication model? Or NLP model of communication. One or the other. Have an event. You take it in through your 5 or more senses. You delete, you distort, you generalize, you filter with your attitudes, your beliefs, your values, and you make that internal representation, that picture with sounds and dialogue and your own voice, internal dialogue. And that is exactly what we do, don't we? But we don't just do it once. We do it a number of times. So we've got all these different scenarios playing out in our head, which then changes our state. And our state could be from anxiety to fear to panic. And that affects our physical body. And that, obviously, when you put it all together, affects the behaviors that we actually do or don't do. So when I heard that thing, if you think you couldn't make it worse, think again. Well, couldn't make it worse? We just bloody do, and we did. And that's all we do. Nothing has happened. Nothing at all. Nothing in this very moment. The now, the present. Nothing has happened until you start to behave. And if you behave from that fear, from that anxiety, from that panic, with that low energy, that physicality of being sick or ill or what have you, then obviously your behaviors, the things you do aren't going to, well, things are actually going to start pulling from this self-fulfilling prophecy that you've done. They're actually going to start confirming what you thought, and then you'll start to make it even worse. But let's have a look now. What happens in real life? A real life and death scenario. And again, I heard about this, a bit like making it, from the guy who told me about making it worse. He said, would you go on a plane with a pilot who hadn't practiced how to survive a crash landing, or to have one of the engines gone, or have this or that? Because if he's never practiced it, how would he know how to do it? And you don't want his first experience of doing it with you on board. But you don't. You never will. Because every pilot will have practiced every possible and probably impossible accident that could happen or could never happen, but let's practice it anyway. And find ways to mitigate it. Find ways to make it safe. To find ways that this, installing behaviors, installing confidence, installing knowledge, installing all different things inside that pilot. So if anything was to happen, this guy has experienced the very, very worst and knows how to deal with it. So that's one possible way that someone's actually came up with these things. But the difference is, isn't it? It's mitigating them, not just letting them go in our head. I mean, these pilots, they may be a little bit anxious. Their heart rate might go a little bit faster when these things happen. The adrenaline might kick in. I'm sure it does. But they practice it until it becomes manageable. And in fact, it becomes so easy for them. It's then just part of their toolbox of skills. But the difference was finding mitigating ways, safe ways to deal with this, and the ways not to deal with it, because then it doesn't work, because you actually go through that procedure. So, okay, we haven't always got one of those little things that you can get in, like a pilot does, and practice landing or practice flying, because, well, we haven't, but we've got it in our head, haven't we? So, having said all of this, I could leave you here now, and you'd be going, well, what do we have to do? How can I use this skill? You keep talking about it, Paul, but have I ever left you hanging? No, I don't think so. So here's what we're going to hang on to. And I want you to remember first, visualization, imagination is not always 2020 vision, because it isn't. Sometimes, when things happen so quickly, we will see things in 2020 vision, especially when they're unconscious, conscious, when we're not consciously trying to do it. But when we visualize and use our imagination, it can be anything from a sense, an awareness. We're seeing nothing but just having a sense of that situation, right through to 2020 vision and 2020 sound and all that stuff. So anywhere on that scale, from awareness to 2020 vision and hearing and feeling and all that stuff, is absolutely perfect. It will just either improve or I believe it'll always be where you need it to be at the right time. So, you get some people say, well, I'm not a visual person. Stuff it, you are. Because I know you have dreams. And when these things happen unconsciously, and you can practice being a more visual person by just looking at something, closing your eyes, trying to remember it, open your eyes, see it again, close your eyes, see a bit more now, open your eyes, see it again, close your eyes. Oh, I'm now starting to see a clearer picture of what I'm just doing. Open your eyes again, see it again, close your eyes. Well, after a while, you won't know whether you got your eyes open or closed. Well, not. You will. Of course you will. But not entirely. Because you'll start to be able to imagine what you're not seeing through your eyes. And it'll be like as if you are looking through your eyes. And then when you just tag that into your imagination, man, you're ready to go. But again, ready. Ready to go means just from awareness to whatever level. So how are we going to use this stuff? How will we use it? Well, we're going to use the very same skill that affected us negatively before. Because in this way, we want to use our imagination, see it in our mind's eye, but actually then put into effect and affect it by imagining ways that may mitigate this, or if it's done differently, it will almost certainly create a different outcome. So how do you do that, Paul? I'm going to tell you. So the very first thing I would do, because there's no set rules to this process, but these are things that I would do. First of all, I would want to set my intention, the direction, my goal. And that's really just speaking to myself in a way that I wonder what it would be like to find ways to make this issue that I'm concerned about the most easy, the most remarkable, the most getting to the goal and making myself feel easy, comfortable, or achieving the result I've always desired. However you set that intention up, that's it. As long as it's positive. So it's not, I wonder what it would be like not to feel anxious. Because as soon as you say not to feel anxious, what have you got to think about first? It's anxious for most people, and then not anxious. And your unconscious mind is going to get confused and start saying, well, you actually said not anxious, but you also said anxious. And the first thing you said, well, they're both anxious, aren't they? So I'm going to think about anxious, because that's what you're worried about. And it hooks it all together and it goes back into that very first thing that we're trying to change. So set your intention with a wonderful positive direction and a wonderful positive goal. Set your state, your emotion. Now that could be curiosity. It could be confidence. It could be calmness. It could be just at peace. It could be anything. I like one more, confidence or curiosity, because that really is a slightly more, has more to it, like that. Calm and peaceful can be a little bit low in energy, but could be just right for you. And you'll know what it is. And then think about your physical body. You know, if you're going to be slumped and laying down and things like that, that may be a signal to your unconscious mind that you're not really interested, or you just want to go to sleep. And that isn't the case. And then once you've set your intention and you've set your state and you've got your right physical body into the right physical way of feeling, we can then close our eyes and start to imagine. But imagine it in a different way. You remember a little while ago, maybe a long time ago, we talked about perceptual positions. and I'm sure I've talked about it a few times because I love it, because first position is looking through your own eyes at the whole wide world. And if you were looking at somebody through your own eyes, that's the first position. Second position is actually going to like their body, that other person, and looking back at you, looking through their eyes, seeing what they would see, and if it was you, they'd be seeing you. And third position, now this is one we want. We call it the meta position, or some people would call it like a director's position. And it's high above that event, looking down upon it. And you see, when you get to that third position, that meta position, that director's position, being high up and looking down from this different perception, you're dissociated from the event down there, because you're looking at yourself and looking at the other things that could happen or the other people. And because you're not in your body down there, you can be detached, which is dissociated. So you're going to be unaffected emotionally. The only emotion you'll have is that state that you set. And so now you can imagine from that, seeing and directing as if they were actors on a stage of one scenario, and just notice how it pans out. What is the result? Now from that, you might go, that's brilliant. Or you might go, actually, that's not what I want. But you're the director from up this high, this position. So now you say, well, rewind. I want you to do it this way, and have those actors do it a different way. Especially that actor, that star, which is you down there. And direct them into different ways of doing this thing. And notice what the results are until you get, firstly, the best result you can imagine for the moment. I'm sure there'll be better ones if you carry it on, but where you feel comfortable, but also knowing that you've got one or at least one, but you'll probably have 4, 5, 6 different variations that if you wanted to, if things go that way, you could slip into that and then change it as you go along. And that's what you do. Now, if you really want to check it out, once you've got the one, call it one film, one view of the way you think it would really work the best, if you want to, you can imagine floating into the you in that event, looking through your own eyes, and then go through this like memory of the future with that scenario, with those skills, with that outcome in mind, exactly the way that you've seen it from that director's position, and notice how you feel going through it. You may find that you'll learn something from down there, go back up to that meta position, the third position, the director's position, and imagine a different set of skills or different ways of doing that scene. And then if you want, go back into that first position. If you wanted to check out other people, how they react, maybe go into that second position and be them, looking at you, acting, listening to the way you speak, how you come across with your non-verbal communication, your physicality, or your physical movements. That's the non-verbal communication. So are you aligned? Are you congruent? And just notice how you can learn from this. So really, it's a little bit like those pilots. You're creating a skill set. And in some ways, to your unconscious mind, especially the ones that really work because you have a good feeling, you're creating a sort of memory where your unconscious mind says, I've done this before. Therefore, I'm comfortable, I'm confident that I can do it again. And in fact, normally when we do things again, we can do them even better than we ever imagined. So, and you can if you really wanted to. When you have these like memories of the future, these best endings, you might even say to you and your unconscious mind, well, how could this be even better, different and better? And just wait for a moment, noticing what reactions and thoughts and feelings you get. And if you want to, go back through the same circumstances, starting from the beginning, floating up a high, looking down. But just notice, you could do this any time. You just need to set a little bit of time aside and notice, really, if there's things that you're thinking about that are causing you to feel anxiety, fear and panic, and they haven't happened yet, then this is a really wonderful skill of not practicing failure now, but practicing success, mitigating failure to your wonderful successes. And how good would that feel? There you go. Now, to me, all we've done is use a skill that we do naturally, and then added a plus sign on it. A plus, a 5 stars. And then when you think to yourself, if you think you couldn't make it worse, yeah, think again, because I can make it bloody better. I can make it the way I want it. And the whole thing is, when you think of things being worse, they very rarely turn out that bad. But when you think about things being better, they generally turn out even betterer. Betterer, that's right, Paul, betterer. Betterer than you even imagined. Sometimes they're twice as betterer or 10 times betterer. And there you go. So use that skill. Get your Jenny journal out if you want and just make a few notes. Rewind this and go through it again. But have fun. Because when you're in a good, playful, curious mindset, emotion, you'll find all the answers you need because you have all the answers inside you. I know you do. And I know whatever you think, you're more than that. That's coming from Uncle Paul. So enjoy every heartbeat. Play as you've never played before. And, well, live with passion, as a very big man used to say. Okay. I'll speak to you real soon. And just before you go, I just want to say thank you for listening, but also, wouldn't it be nice if you had a friend that if they knew that you weren't feeling quite yourself, they recommended something like this if they felt it was something good for you. So if you have a friend that you feel could benefit from any of my podcasts here, please do share with everyone you can think of. That would be really nice, really nice. And if you like, you can go to iTunes and you can subscribe. There's a subscribe bit there, and you'll get these podcasts come onto your device as and when they come along. I'm doing about 2 episodes a week now, so you can have the 5-minute quickie and the longer podcast for a little bit more in-depth work. So please do that. And if you're feeling so kind, if you could put a lovely review in where it says review, because that's where reviews go. So don't make it so simple, and in simplicity there's genius. Yeah, please do. If you want to find out what I do, the other things I do, you can go to paulclough.co.uk. That's my website. And if you want to ask me a question, please email me, paul@paulclough.co.uk. Love to hear from you. We've got lots of things to do, and I just want to support you in creating your reality. Okay? So enjoy, have more happiness than you can stand, and shine so brightly and create that reality you love. Okay, now. Bye-bye now. Personal development. Unplugged.